and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. Sort of choked myself there for just a second. Anyway, I wanted to talk today. It's summer, a lot of people are doing travel, and many people like to do road trips, and sometimes we forget to make sure that we're really prepared for that road trip. So I just wanted to kind of go over a few little tips that are available online. There's a whole lot, and I'm not going to cover things like bringing your snacks because we're not talking about that kind. We're talking about just the ways you get prepared, especially when it comes to your vehicle before you take a road trip. So one of the first things, as I mentioned, is checking your car before you go. Maybe you need to actually take it in, depending on the year. But if not taking it in, you yourself check your fluid levels. Top off anything that needs to be topped off. Make sure you check your brakes. Are they squeaking? Do they not seem to be working so well? Make sure to get that kind of give it an overlook, and if it needs to be taken in, especially if you're going to do a long trip, make sure that you take that into a professional and get that checked before you go. Look for any leaks. You can put cardboard under where you park and then check it the next day, see if you have anything that's leaking that might need to be checked before you go. Check your lights, change your wipers, all those kinds of things. And especially I want to say also check your tires. Make sure to check the level of air in them, check your tread, and also that includes that spare tire. Sometimes we think about the 4 on the car that we can see, but we don't tend to think about whether or not our spare is prepared for when we go. Also make sure that you have all the tools that you're going to need if you need to change that tire into that spare, right? Because you don't want to get out there and have no idea what you're doing. You may be lucky and get a motorist who passes by, but if not, if you don't have AAA, then you might need you might need those tools. There's the thought I'm trying to finish that for some reason was not coming out. So, and I will say I once I know how to change a tire. I was raised by a single mom, and so that was one of those things. She's like, you need to know how to check the oil and change your tires and all that sort of stuff. Well, then I got them put on professionally when I got new tires, and I could not get that thing off. Those lug nuts were so tight. I was literally standing on that bar trying to get those to turn and couldn't do it, and had to have somebody come help me. So those tools help, but sometimes it's still a little tricky. Anyway, on your trip, avoid sleepiness. Pull over if you have heavy eyelids, if your head is drooping a lot, if you're daydreaming too much. It might be time to get out of the car or take a rest. All right. Pack an emergency kit. Now, that's not just for your car. That's an emergency kit for all sorts of things. But you want water for yourself and for your car. On that one, you want them for both. If you're overheating, and especially in Arizona, if you're traveling when it's 115 degrees, you might want to make sure that you have some extra water for your car, and plenty for you also. Blankets, which I know some people will think in the summer you don't need, but you just never know. It doesn't hurt to have. A flashlight, those tools I talked about, not just ones for changing your tire, but all sorts of tools are handy to have. Have a first aid kit. And there's all sorts of things that you can pack in your emergency kit. And for some of us, that might include snacks, so I guess I'll mention that. Lock everything down while you're traveling. Now, most people will think of the stuff just on the top of the car needs to be locked down, but really stuff that's in your car too. You don't want to have one of those moments where you're hitting the brakes and things are flying everywhere. I mean, you hope that doesn't happen, but it could, and you just don't want things flying everywhere or even just falling off your seats and you get distracted because you're trying to clean it up, and then you rear end the person in front of you. So make sure that everything is locked down. If it can be in the trunk, great. Even more helpful. But even then, I know there was one trip I was taking and somebody else had put the suitcase in the car, and so every time I stopped it would flop forward on my seat, and then I'd go and it'd flop back, and that's all I could hear. And I didn't last more than about 20 minutes before I had to pull over and change that because it was driving me absolutely crazy. So lock everything down. This should go without saying, but it doesn't always. Make sure you plan your route, know where you're going, and even plan your rest stops along the way. Get an idea of how far you can go on your tank of gas and when you're going to need to stop. Make sure that there's going to be places along the way. If you're going into specifically remote areas, make sure that you plan so that you won't end up in a totally remote area that doesn't have a gas station available to you while running out of gas. So make sure to plan those ahead of time. Have and plan in case of bad weather. That can in the winter, it's going to include snow and ice and that kind of stuff, but it could be heavy rains and all sorts of that too. So make sure that you have a plan, or maybe you just don't really want to travel when it's 115 degrees and the sun is blazing on you. So make sure you have a plan. Take a map. We all rely on our GPS so much that we don't even think about having a map with us. But you know what? Sometimes that GPS is not working so great. Again, if you get in those remote areas, maybe you're going to lose service and you're not going to know exactly where you are. So it does not hurt to have those paper maps still available to us. So take that. Make sure to keep your phone charged, because again, if you need emergency services, maybe you are using that GPS, but make sure that you keep your phone charged. Maybe you have some extra chargers with you, but don't be using it while you drive. So there's little, extra cautionary in there. No texting, absolutely, and you should only be using hands-free if you're talking on the phone, but even that can be distracting. So whatever other tips you have for that safe travel this summer, you can add them in the comments, because we need all the help we can get, right? We want to be able to go have our road trip and have a good time. I hope you all have a fabulous week, and we will see you again next week. Bye.